Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Christina Tarantola. I'm a former pharmacist, author, and transformation coach, and I help visionary women to alchemize their high-achieving patterns into soulful expression. So they're really owning their brilliance out in the world and increasing their level of income and impact. So this topic today is so relevant to everything that I talk about with my women every single week because I work intimately with the subconscious mind, which runs 95% of everything that we do. So think about that for a minute. Only 5% of what you do is conscious. Everything else is beneath the surface. So your subconscious mind comprises your emotional body, your intuition, any past experience, any trauma. So that's really what we're talking about today is how to begin really releasing that trauma in a healthy way and what actually creates a trauma. And when we start to look at those factors, we can start to see what are the healing methods, what are the ways that we can begin releasing it. So there are actually 4 things that have to be operating in order to encode a trauma. Now, the first thing is the actual event, right? So maybe you had something really jolting that happened to you. Imagine yourself getting chased by a bear or something like that. That's the event. That's the first thing that creates these gamma wave brain states, really high stress. Your body's in flight or flight. We get flooded. All of those chemicals, the norepinephrine, the adrenaline, cortisol, all start pumping through your bloodstream. So that is the first thing that is needed to create a trauma, is the actual event. So it can be anything from something really scary, like running away from a bear, or something as simple as, getting yelled at by your parent and feeling like, oh my goodness, I don't even know what I did. And you're feeling like you're just overwhelmed with that emotion and you're so young that you don't know how to process it. So that emotion remains undigested in your subconscious body. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you ate a piece of bread and it never got digested. That piece of bread would remain in your body because there would be no way for it to be digested and excreted. So that's what happens with these undigested emotions that we don't fully go back and feel, because as children, we didn't know how to cope with it. We didn't know what to do. And oftentimes we develop defenses. And I actually made a video about this, about breaking the vicious cycle, where we have certain defenses like fight or flight. Maybe we get really angry, or we kind of like shut down. Whatever that defense mechanism is, that was your protection at the time. So working with the trauma is really about remembering mentally, like you might remember, oh my gosh, I remember that bad thing happened to me, but really bringing in and allowing the space for that emotion to be fully felt so that those two things can fuse and be released. And it has less energy consciousness on top of that actual trauma. So the first thing is really the event. Whatever that trigger was, whatever that event was that created this response in your body, that's the first thing. And all of this gets encoded on the amygdala, which is a very small almond-shaped gland in your brain. So this is all happening in the amygdala. The second thing that is needed for a trauma to be encoded is that we attach meaning to it. So, for example, say that you get yelled at for expressing yourself. You, as a 5-year-old child or a younger child, might have made it mean, I can't be myself, or I'm a bad person, or I am bad. So those are the things that start to get weaved in as we start experiencing these events. So that's the second part of this equation, is attaching meaning to what was happening. The third thing is inescapability. So feeling powerless, feeling very vulnerable, like you can't escape. So that's why we create these defenses, right? As children, like I alluded to before, whether it's gripping onto control or, lashing out or running away or whatever that is, there's a feeling of feeling trapped and feeling stuck. And that's actually what happens in the emotional body, is that emotion gets stuck and lodged in. And the final thing is the landscape. So thinking just about a general landscape, how is this affecting somebody? So you could have 2 people who go through the same experience, but have totally different landscapes of what that looked like. So maybe one person, it was like, oh my gosh, this was earth-shattering and horrible, and the other person's not as affected. So is there a resilient landscape or a more vulnerable landscape? So these are the 4 factors that are operating when a trauma gets encoded. And so in order to begin to understand what's really happening, we can look at these factors and see, okay, how did I attach meaning? What did I make that mean to my 5-year-old self? And we can do this consciously or under hypnosis in the subconscious mind. I find it's so much easier to work in the subconscious because there's a lot less resistance. A lot of the times our inner protector will come up and, maybe it's tough to get to those deeper layers, and that's okay. But consciously, again, we're only working with that 5%. So when we can really dive deep and go into the subconscious and allow that feeling to be fully felt, that's where we begin to heal. So I encourage you to reach out to anybody that you feel, is an expert in trauma, a healer, a coach, a therapist, somebody that can really help you to merge those two things, the mental process. Cognitively, we might know, okay, this happened to me, but you need support and an open space to hold you in that pain, because it is really heavy. And when we begin releasing a lot of these heavy blocks and these wounds and these pain points that we have through all these different types of releasing techniques and through having someone lovingly hold a space for us, we actually begin raising our vibration, because trauma, pain, all of that is vibrating at a very low three-dimensional level. I want you to think of a 15-pound weight versus a 1-pound weight. 3D, or really low frequencies, are heavy, they're dense. I want you to think of that 15-pound weight. And as you begin releasing and letting go, you actually lighten up. And I have a whole book about this, but you start vibrating at higher frequencies because you're not holding on to this density in your emotional body. And I've seen incredible work by really helping people to shift out of these patterns, because you're able to feel higher levels of joy, love, expansion, and you're not so bogged down by feelings of depression and anxiety and all of these other things that are physical symptoms of trauma that's still lodged in that subconscious body. So anyway, I hope that this was super helpful for you, and I will leave some more information down in the description so that you can connect with me. You can look at my Lighten Up book. There are so many resources that I have on my website, so feel free to check that out. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.